Namaste. Today we are taking up a prayer of the Mother which she wrote on April 4, 1914. And the title, My Limited Mind gave it, is Flame of Consecration. We always associate the flame with aspiration. Yes, it is very much linked to aspiration, but yet, flame of consecration. And it is a very short, very beautiful, and a very powerful prayer. And it makes us reflect on the essence of sadhana, how the aspiration rises, and what happens when the aspiration is rising in a flame which is totally consecrated to the divine. The mother is actually sharing her own realization and experience. It is so short, the prayer, it is only in 3 sentences, but it opens a whole wide world for us to reflect upon. The prayer, April 4, 1914. O Lord, my adoration rises ardently to Thee. All my being is an aspiration, a flame consecrated to Thee. Lord, Lord, my sweet Master, it is Thou who livest and willest in me. This body is Thy instrument, this will is Thy servant, this intelligence is Thy tool, and the whole being is only Thyself. If we look at the starting word, O Lord, my adoration rises ardently, means it is intensely devoted, ardently to Thee. All my being is an aspiration, a flame consecrated to Thee. How beautifully the Mother is addressing the Lord. This is her conversation, her own dialogue with the Divine Master. And it shows how a true prayer should actually begin. What it begins with. Whenever we start a conversation with somebody, we first acknowledge that person and acknowledge the presence, and then we begin. Why do we forget to do that when we are addressing the divine? How beautiful it is to express to the divine what it feels to us to turn to the divine. What are those feelings? The mother starts with an adoration. Do we ever express adoration to the divine? Adoration has got strong components of love and devotion. She starts with an adoration where she is expressing that her whole being is springing up like a flame of aspiration. Now, aspiration is a self giving which starts from the heart and not the head. And this movement of turning to the divine in all our being, in the entirety of our being, is what consecration is all about. Now, Sri Aurobindo, in the Synthesis of Yoga, he writes, consecration becomes in its fullness a devoting of all our being to the divine, therefore also of our thoughts and our work. This word consecration or to consecrate is very interesting. Usually we think that it is a sanctification of something and setting it apart as only for the divine or for God, to purify our being and make us worthy of approaching the divine or doing something for the divine. Sri Aurobindo clarifies in Letters on Yoga, consecration is a process. It is a process by which one trains the consciousness to give itself to the divine. In Hindi, the word which comes closest to this word, consecration, is yajna, yajna. And often it is confused with the word sacrifice. When we talk of sacrifice, we still have a feeling of giving up something for another thing, something else. And some sort of a pain or some sort of a, giving it out, there is a reluctance, you can say, is there, but we do it for somebody or something else that is more dearer to us. Now, consecration, the mother says, it has a more mystical sense, and it is not absolute. An absolute consecration or a full consecration, to be fully consecrated, signifies a total giving of oneself. Hence, it is equivalent to the word surrender. And to consecrate means to give oneself to an action. So, in the yogic sense, it is to give oneself to some divine work with the idea of accomplishing that work. I am reminded of words from the Gita where Sri Krishna tells Arjuna, Man mana bhav mat bhakto, matyaji maam namaskuru, means be mindful of me. And when the mind is lodged in me, devote everything that you have to me. Tu mujh mein man wala ho, मेरी भक्ति कर, मेरी पूजा कर, मैं तुझसे सत्य प्रतिज्ञा करता हूँ कि तू मुझे ही प्राप्त होगा. And what a strong pratigya, what a strong assurance by Sri Krishna. That means when we are mindful, when our mind is totally in the divine, and when we, with the entirety of our whole being, in fact, is with the divine, then everything that we have, mind, heart, everything is at the disposal of the Lord. And Sri Krishna tells in chapter 10, in the shlokas 9, 10, and 11, he says that those who come to me with such a state of adoration and love and an intense delight in my presence, he gives the assurance that he destroys even the ignorance that the imperfections that are there in the being. He takes them on and he removes them. He removes the ignorance, and thereby he gives that true knowledge. So knowledge becomes a corollary to this devotion. The divine intervenes even if there is any imperfection and confirms it by the perfect yoga, his own perfect yoga of will and intelligence. And that is what the mother is also, in this state that she is, of a very intense adoration, like a flame consecrated to the divine. What she is feeling is, she brings it out in the next part of the prayer. She says, Lord, Lord, my sweet master. Master is always sweet for the mother. Lord, Lord, my sweet master, it is thou who livest and willest in me. Even in these words, we can feel that intense devotion, that ardent aspiration she feels. So no more the ego self is gone. The ego self is gone for good. No more is the ego self there. And Sri Krishna, when he says, he destroys the ignorance of separativeness. Separativeness, ego is separativeness. And the mind and the will, they stand revealed in the human spirit. In chapter 10, he clarifies this. So, mother is describing her state in which she has become like this flame, and this flame, she knows nothing else but this divine. So, when one has fully consecrated, or in one holds in every part of the being, when one turns to the divine, then that sanctifies everything in us, and then everything in us becomes a tool for the divine work. Now, the mother says, interestingly, that when the resolution has been taken, and when you have decided that you have formed that you are around that central idea where you know that you have given your life to the divine, and you have, she says, but still at every moment you have to remember and carry it out in all the details of your day to day life. And no longer then is it you who is doing the work, no longer are your thoughts your own, no longer whatever is coming out of you is your own. It is only the divine consciousness that is now working through you. But one has to remember it and work towards it. What does she mean when she says work towards it? It is to work out the details of everyday life around that central idea so that you don't lose that idea. And since you are in the process of surrendering, when you have identified yourself with that idea that everything is happening because of the divine, for the divine, through the divine, by the divine, then one has to work around it and not let it fizzle out. This is consecration, to work out the detail in every aspect of the being. She is already in that state. And interestingly, when you realize this, then even the smallest things, which we often think they are less important, we are so forgetful, we take them for granted, even the smallest of the things, then they start becoming meaningful us. No longer, we take care to give our attention and our, you can say, full devotion or mindfulness even to those little acts which seem insignificant, which seem important to us in the beginning. Then everything, whether it is small or big, becomes a mean to turn towards the divine. This is every small thing. Then nothing is insignificant because everything is coming from the divine. Everything the divine is doing. How can it be insignificant then? So then this realization starts coming. We have this concept of prasad. We offer food to the divine and it becomes prasad. We offer water, then it becomes charanamrit. It means that now, whatever we are getting as prasad, it has been sanctified by the divine and it has been given to us for doing the divine work. And when one is like this ardent flame, fully consecrated in all parts of the being, then every morsel of food that we take actually becomes a prasad. Every breath we take actually becomes a purifier. So, becoming a supramental being, attaining samadhi, attaining siddhis has never been the goal of Sri Aurobindo and the mothers' yoga. They led by example. They never asked anything for themselves. It was always for the world, at the cosmic level, at the universal level. It was always for others. The mother says, the third sentence of the prayer, and in this state that she is, everything is for the divine. This body is thy instrument. This will is thy servant. This intelligence is thy tool. And the whole being is only thyself. I'll repeat this line, very powerful line. This body is thy instrument. This will is thy servant. This intelligence is thy tool. And the whole being is only thyself. She is offering everything she has. Now, even the body cannot be allowed to feel any kind of, you can say, depression, stress. So our speech, thoughts, senses, everything, every organ, every limb has to be working towards the divine work. It is meant to be so. Basically, when we turn to the divine, we are full of imperfections. It's not that we are, the mother also has said that don't wait to happen that state of absolute surrender. Come to me as you are, with your habits, with whatever you have, you come to me, and I will take care of the imperfections. And so the divine intervenes in this stage of imperfection and removes every obstacle, every ignorance, by providing that true knowledge, that intelligence, that intellects also start. So there is devotion, there is intelligence, and there is this body now which has to be treated like, you can say, a temple which is lodging the divine. So everything becomes important. So when we open ourselves in perfect receptivity, and if we are not perfect in our receptivity, but we are aspiring for that receptivity, it will come. The divine will make sure it comes. And when we open to the Lord, the Mother, in all sincerity and with whatever capacity we have, Mother is not asking us to turn perfect and then turn to her. She's asking, with your imperfections, you come to me, with whatever capacity we have. Now, the beauty is that when we do that, our difficulties, our imperfections, our abilities and disabilities all start getting used by the divine for the divine work. She will take care of it. The divine is going to make use of our imperfections also to move us towards the divine life that we are supposed to lead. Sri Aurobindo gives a very scientific explanation for this. He says that the infinite, or everything is a form of energy, he says, and we are a physical embodiment of that infinite universal force. Yet, often we feel tired, we need to rest, we need to relax. But if we are that universal force, that infinite universal force, how is it possible that we tire? How is it possible that we need to rest? We are infinite force, isn't it? Now the explanation he gives is that we are that infinite energy, that universal force, but we have locked it up in so many various forms that are no longer alive. All our opinions, attitudes, habits, mental formations, all our, everything that is related to our ego self, that energy is getting trapped in that. It is getting locked up in that. It is as if they have got locked up in atoms of matter and they are fixed in their positions and they can't move from that. So we have locked it. And when the mother asks us to consecrate our acts, our past, our habits, she is actually telling us that all these things, your habits, your character traits, and everything that you have, put it in the bonfire of aspiration. She uses these words, bonfire of aspiration. When we do that, it liberates the conscious energy that is trapped in these habits, these ideas, these character traits, this ego self, name, fame, whatever we have trapped it into, it just liberates that energy. So our sense of superiority, self-importance, status, prestige, self-satisfaction, competence, name, fame, radical ideas are so many locks that we have placed on the doors and windows. And these locks, they prevent the real life energy from emerging. And consecration helps us to break those locks. We really are that infinite energy. So, and Sri Aurobindo at some place he has also talked of negative attitude, negative egoism, even depression, feelings of worthlessness, feelings of pity, of disgrace, incompetence, they also need to, those are also very tight locks that we place on them, you know, because those are all the locks that are enlarging the ego. And the moment we start breaking those locks, and how do we break those locks? We offer, we remember at each moment, we just offer it to the divine. And we offer in all sincerity, not to show, not to say, hey Bhagwan kar kalyan. We offer it really with all sincerity, and ऐसा हो ही नहीं सकता कि वो लॉक्स फिर खुले ना. And when we are not able to open those locks, what happens? We are faced with life situations and we get tight slaps, or we get, we get knocked out by these very circumstances that we ourselves, these locks have created. Those knocks come only to tell us that now it's time for you to use that key. Use the word Ma. Turn to her and open those locks. So the more the harsher, the more intense the obstacles are, the greater is the growth, the greater is the movement, the greater is the rise. And the more we go on offering, we will see that this flame becomes more and more intense. And there is an unlimited joy which comes with it. It is not only that we are giving up, we are putting it into the bonfire of aspiration. It is getting purified, it is getting transformed. And these are now being used by the divine to turn us towards Him. We think we love the divine, and we do so many things to prove our love to the divine. But we must remember that the divine loves us more than we love ourselves. So this is the great offering that she is making of her body, intelligence, and the entire being. It is not difficult to turn to the spiritual path. One may turn to the spiritual path by any means, maybe an idea, maybe some indoctrination by the guru, or maybe an impression that a person has left on you, or maybe some, you can say, some sad thing has happened with you, a death of a relative, close relative, or some obstacle you are facing. It makes you turn to that spiritual path. And when we turn on the spiritual path, when we get this feeling of this central idea that there is this divine and we need to turn to this divine, we are seeking. There is a seeking that happens. And when this happens, when we turn on the spiritual path, when we turn on the yogic path, often there is a sense of elation, there is a sense of newness. We feel waves of bliss. We think we feel very inspired. There is a touch of peace, knowledge, power, and all these things make us feel, there's a very feel-good factor to it. But it is also a universal thing that after this initial period of enthusiasm comes the lull, comes a period where there is depression, more obstacles, the things which you are trying to get over, you face more of them. And more knocks come to you. And even it can go to the extent of even forgetfulness of the divine himself. So this is so because the decision to live a higher life, the decision to move towards this central idea has been taken up by only one part of the being. And the other parts which lie low, the moment this part takes the decision to turn to the divine, either it is the head, or it is the heart, or it is the emotional sense, or it is some idea, or it is some fascination or imagination that makes you turn to the divine, it has been taken up by only one part of the being, not all. And the rest of the parts, either they rise in rebellion, or they will try to rattle this part which has turned to the divine, or which has attached itself to the idea of moving towards the divine, and they will pull it down. And what will happen is, they will rise in rage and rebel, and everything that we know we ought to give up, or we should shun, or we know that it is going to prevent us from proceeding on this yogic path, they will suddenly become very large and ominous. And they will come with lot of attractions. And that is how you will get waylaid. It is because only one part of the being has got attached to it. The whole idea of consecrating and keeping this flame of aspiration alive and growing is that all the parts of the being have to centralize and harmonize around this idea which is making you turn towards the divine. And it happens. Initially, these phases of, you can say, interruptions, or you can say long periods of gap when you forget the divine, they are more in the beginning. But as we don't let go of that, if we maintain our vigil, the whole idea is that if we are very sincere, then everything will work around even that little part that has turned to the divine, and slowly it is going to cajole, it is going to convince the other parts also to centralize around this idea and harmonize. And slowly we will find that these periods of interruptions or obstacles, they start becoming lesser and lesser, and the intensity of our movement or our ideas, the mind, intelligence, heart, everything starts moving very rapidly towards the divine. And never think that it is I who am doing it. It is the grace which is doing it. The divine is the one. The mother in many of her prayers said that it is the divine who is doing the sadhana in us. We just have to open and realize. And then the experiences follow. The experiences may be bitter, tough, they may be very difficult in the beginning. But as they say, एक आग का दरिया है और डूब के जाना है. So love, and when we have this love and adoration, like the mother is having that love and adoration, this love and adoration is our safeguard, one can say. Because the Lord himself is promising, no? When you have this love and adoration for the Lord, Sri Krishna says, when you have this, I will bring you out of everything. I will bring you out of every trouble. Even if there are imperfections, even if there is ignorance, I will bring true knowledge to you, so that your mind and heart and everything in you, they work together for the divine work. So basically it is, like Sri Aurobindo says, it is to train the consciousness. So we must remember that purification, consecration, it is a process. It is a process to train the consciousness to turn towards the divine. And when we make up our mind and when we are moving in all sincerity, every small thing, every obstacle becomes a stepping stone towards that. It is not that then the pushbacks that we get in the beginning, they don't happen anymore. The more we start getting consecrated and the more vigilant we are, the more alert we are, with the idea that yes, the divine is the raison d'etre of my life. And it is the only meaning in my life. I am here because of the divine, and I need to turn to that source now. So everything will work around. So basically, it is a detailed working out around that idea which makes you surrender. So every kind of detail to make this surrender more and more absolute, more and more absolute. So everything we do, then it is a part of that process of turning to the divine in all sincerity. And then the aspiration, aspiration is a calling. It's like a flame that rises, and it only rises. So only in these 3 sentences, the mother makes us reflect on so many things. There is something very interesting I read. It is from some answers from the mother. The mother, while explaining to a very young disciple about how one needs to move, how one needs to consecrate, she says, it is very simple, my child, you see. The infinite is the inexhaustible storehouse of forces or energy, and the individual is a storage cell, a small battery that dries up. Consecration is the wire that connects the two and prevents the storage cell from getting dried up. She gives another example, a very beautiful one. The infinite is the river that never ceases to flow, and the individual is the tiny little pond that easily dries up in the sun. And consecration is the channel or that water body that connects the two. So, and it prevents the pond from drying up. So, there may be times when we will dry up, we will lose faith, we will lose hope, and we will feel very shattered. And shattering can happen in many other ways. Divine, I'm calling to you, Ma, you're not listening to me. Even that kind of shattering also happens. Where the ego self, you have turned to the divine, there is a certain ego that, okay, I am turning to the divine. So even those kind of things, they also kind of, those are also kind of setbacks on the spiritual path. But when we turn to the divine in all sincerity, with love and adoration, when we start feeling this love and adoration, we automatically feel a widening happens. Then everything that happens around us makes us feel, gives us that idea that it is something that I need, and it is something that the divine is organizing for me to overcome, so that I can go to the next step, I can rise. So everything around, even imperfections, even good things, bad things, ugly things, then one, ऐसे कहते हैं ना, समानता, we start feeling that equanimity also. We start feeling that whatever is happening for the best. But it is not, complacency should not set in, that I leave everything to the divine and I will not do anything. Now this work, this detailing, this turning of the thought, this offering of the acts, is doing of certain things. This is our job. And this is what consecration is all about. That we don't let go of that idea and we work towards that idea tirelessly, with faith in the Divine Mother, with faith in the Divine Master, that yes, the Mother is going to pull us out, the Mother is going to show. So turn to the Mother. We will read this prayer once more. April 4, 1914. O Lord, my adoration rises ardently to Thee. All my being is an aspiration, a flame consecrated to Thee. Lord, Lord, my sweet Master, it is Thou who livest and willest in me. This body is Thy instrument. This will is Thy servant. This intelligence is Thy tool. And the whole being is only Thyself. सर आप कुछ कहेंगे?
The Gita follows a particular pattern and for a particular reason. It starts with the emphasis on action, because Arjuna is an action-oriented person, and that is what he'll understand the best. And like a good teacher, Sri Krishna starts with what the student is likely to understand the best, and from there move from simple things to more complex things. And then he gives him knowledge about the divine. All that happens is because of the divine. The divine is behind all creation, it's behind all happenings. And this overwhelms Arjuna and he becomes a devotee. And now that he has become a devotee, he is told that now you just do what I am saying, because now it's very easy for Arjuna to do that, because now he has become a devotee. But then the sequence doesn't always have to be the same, and it can be different. And you can see that there is a hint of that deviation which is possible, which is something which is not only just one more deviation or one more deviation from the sequence which is possible, but a deviation which is extremely helpful because it brings in the element of devotion. So, roughly in the beginning of the Gita, about the first one third of the Gita, the emphasis is on action. And now, in the 10th chapter from which Mithu just quoted, he is going to give him knowledge. Sri Krishna is going to give him knowledge. But then, before giving him that knowledge, he is telling him something about the importance of devotion, the great sort of potency of devotion. So he's telling him that if you are totally devoted to me, you have that delight of adoration, then your ignorance will go. Which means that it's not that after action, now I'm giving you knowledge, and that knowledge will then make you a devotee. From what you have already been told, you might have developed a sense of adoration, which is the characteristic of a devotee, and that devotion itself will illumine you, it will give you that knowledge. I will remove that ignorance from you. I'll remove that ignorance. So he's telling him why he's giving him that knowledge, and also the potency of devotion in evoking or in giving that knowledge. Now this is important because so many of our spiritual masters have not really been men of bookish learning. They have been primarily devotees. And that intense devotion and adoration has been enough to make them realize the divine, to become one with the divine. And then, of course, they feel that what is the use of all this devotion and all this knowledge that devotion has brought us? Let me do something for the object of devotion, and so action comes in. So the triune is one. All three will eventually merge. But devotion entering at any stage is helpful, whether it is right at the beginning or it is after the emphasis on action, as in this 10th chapter in the Gita, before actually knowledge is given, or whether it is at the end, which actually it is in the Gita, the emphasis on devotion is at the end. Now, which means devotion can enter at any point it will be extremely helpful. So those of our spiritual masters and founders of religions who started primarily as devotees, they got this knowledge without reading any scriptures. It came from within. The divine removed their ignorance, and therefore they had no need to read any scriptures. On the basis of the knowledge that was revealed to them, they ended up creating scriptures.